the stars. I can go sit in my backyard on a lawn chair and look up, and because there's no light pollution, just a beautiful night sky of stars. It's beautiful.
Welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, conversations with women who have found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 147. Find out more about the podcast at desertladydiaries.com and engage with the guests, other listeners, or me on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries. And if you do all your audio listening through Pandora, you'll now find the Desert Lady Diaries podcast there as well.
Valcine Brown is an eclectic soul who appreciates art in the many ways it can be expressed. Of all those art forms, music and the written word have had the most influence and impact on her life. She's a singer and has been a voracious reader since childhood. Valcine grew up listening to the sounds of old school R&B and soul, the music played at family gatherings. Gladys Knight and the Pips, the Spinners, the Four Tops, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and Aretha Franklin. Valcine loves learning. When not teaching English arts, she sings with a band and is currently working on her doctorate in curriculum and instruction. The joys of her life are her 3 adult children. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Dawn, so much for having me.
What was your first experience with any kind of desert?
My first experience with any kind of desert is family trips to Las Vegas. My aunt and uncle would go often with their 3 children, and they often invited me to come along. I had an older sister, but she was 13 years older. My cousins were closer to my age, so we had much more in common. And so I can remember we would go usually every summer. Sometimes we go to Laughlin, but mostly it was Vegas. We stayed at Circus. I played games, and I remember just the incredible heat and being out in the sun, and we just wanted to go to the pool if we couldn't go to the arcade games. But yep, those are my first experience with any desert.
Wow. So did they have the misters going then when you were there at all the places? And
I don't recall having any misters. No, that doesn't stand out to me. I wonder if that was pre-mister time.
Pre-mister. So you were experiencing the full-on heat of Las Vegas desert summer.
Yes, we're talking, mid to late 80s.
It's incredible to me that our Mojave Desert stretches all that far into the Vegas area, which is pretty cool. It's a huge, huge desert.
Yes, I noticed when I was coming back from Vegas, speaking of Vegas, I was there this weekend, coming back from Vegas, once you cross outside of Primm, you see the sign, Welcome to California, San Bernardino County, and it's just so vast.
Did you come through? Do you take that back way through the Mojave Preserve?
Yes, through Amboy. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
It is. It was a little difficult to see this time, those California wildfires that we had. Oh, I just found myself looking at them going, oh no, it's different seeing devastation on TV, and you feel compassion for those who are being displaced, for the natural resources that are being destroyed, and for the animals who make the desert their home. But seeing it in person, it hits you differently. Yeah. So yeah, it was very difficult to see.
Were you coming during that, came home on Sunday?
I came home on Sunday, yeah.
Sunday, okay. So you missed, apparently when we had those really harsh winds on Saturday, there were storms down in Palm Springs. Some roads were closed because of the way the sand just blows across the highway, almost,
yes.
And accumulates like water across the road. And then there, even friends of mine out in Wonder Valley had photos of just sandstorm because of the high winds that were happening.
My son told me that he forgot to bring the trash cans in Friday evening. So he woke up Saturday morning and he sent me a video. He said, look how far the trash can is. It was all the way down the street. I was like, oh. So he had to go get it.
Right.
Yes, he said it was really bad.
Yeah, there were some pretty powerful winds. So what was your first experience with this desert here in the Morongo Basin, Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree area?
Well, I moved out to the lower desert area in late 95. My husband at the time, we had one child, and I just didn't want to raise my children out in the LA County area. Just too fast paced, the cost of living too high. And so he happened to get a promotion on his job that brought us out here. So we were in the lower desert for about 10 or 15 years. We divorced subsequently. And I moved up here to the Yucca Valley area about 4 years ago. I remember that I would take this back way, going to Vegas or going over to Victorville. So I'd go up the 247 and just thinking of how beautiful and how peaceful it is. So when I was looking to purchase my next home, I said, well, let me just look and see what's up there. And the prices were wonderful. And the amount of land that you get, I said, I can't beat this with a stick. And I love to garden. So it was just natural for me to move up here with my vision board and my dream of what it's going to look like as I'm slowly adding to it. So I've been up here about 4.5 years now.
Did you know anybody when you moved up here in this area?
Did I? No, I knew one person who did live up here, but then she ended up getting engaged and moving away. But so no, I didn't really know anybody up here, but I still work in the lower desert. So I tend to make my way down there quite a bit. Well, nowhere now.
Right. Yeah.
I'm working from home now.
Right.
But typically I would, make my way down there at least for work and maybe go hang out with friends, maybe after work, have a cocktail or two.
Right. Did you find at some point after you moved here that you wanted to get out into the local community? And when you did, how did that happen for you? Was it through maybe open mics with your singing, or how did it happen?
Let's karaoke. Karaoke. I love karaoke. And I just happened to go up to, where was I going? Oh, Joshua Tree Saloon. So I would go there on Fridays or Saturday evenings. And then I met this wonderful singer by the name of Nina. And she came up to me after I sang. She goes, oh my God, you were so wonderful. Let's exchange numbers. I have this show coming up. I was like, oh, okay. And then she introduced me to Lisa and Paul. And then I started singing with them. And it was like, oh, and then you just start meeting everyone.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you're working from home. Is that how it's working for you right now?
Yes. I work for Palm Springs Unified, and we have been home doing distance learning since March 13th of 2020. So we're coming up on a year now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How are your students faring with that? How does it feel for them?
Oh, it's been rough. I think that there was a certain novelty to it in the beginning, the whole idea of, oh, I don't have to get up early for school. I could just sit down at the table. And so the students were really engaged in participating when we first started doing distance learning. But after a while, I think the novelty wore off and the social experience really started being difficult for them. They miss it so much. I like to say that teenagers don't go to school to learn, they go to school to socialize. We just make them learn while they're there. Okay. And so it's been quite a challenge for quite a few of them for multiple reasons, missing their friends, missing their teachers who they have a connection with. And this year actually was very difficult for teachers and students alike, because starting the whole school year off with new students that you can't even see face to face makes it very challenging to build community. At least last year when we did go on distance learning, we had been together, 75% of the year already. So we knew one another. It's been a challenge coming together and trying to build connections, them with one another, building connections from them to the teachers whom they work with, the aides with whom they work with, staff at the school who they have to interact with, their counselors, everyone. It's been challenging, to say the least.
I bet. You're also a learner, and you're in the process of getting your doctorate. Can you talk a little bit about that process? And let's step back even further to not one, but 2 Masters of Fine Arts.
I'm a nerd.
Right? Humanities and English literature. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. The distance learning has been in that capacity a godsend because I'm having more time to focus on my studies because I'm not losing time in my commute. 35 minutes in the morning, 35 minutes home, and putting in a little extra hour on the clock with school because we know teachers work long beyond
Mhm.
the end of their workday, makes it a little easier. I can just pop on over here and do a little grading or things like that. And then, okay, close the computer, no more work today. So in that way, it's been a blessing to be able to have that extra time to put and devote to my studies. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like when we do go back, how I'm going to readjust my schedule to account for that. And then my program that I'm in through Liberty University, it's very fulfilling. I am learning so much. And at this level, it's a lot of research. So it's a lot of consuming of information, and then you're synthesizing it. And then you're looking, okay, what can I do to impact and improve education with what I've learned looking back? How do I take it and move forward?
Did
So
you start this program because it's what, digital curriculum? Is that
it's curriculum and instruction.
curriculum and instruction? Did you start the program prior to this whole COVID shutdown, or was it the COVID shutdown that you're like, well, now I've got some time. I've wanted to get the doctorate. Now's the time to do it.
I actually applied for the program December of 2019. So I had no idea that I would be in distance learning at the time. After I finished my second master's degree, I said, I'm going to give myself a 2-year break, no school. And then I'm going to decide whether or not it's something I want to move forward with. How will I use it to benefit my students and impact not just the students I teach today, but the educational system as a whole? And so I took my 2-year break, and just over the course of, I've been teaching 8 years now. It's like, yeah, this needs to change. I need to work on, yeah, okay, I need to go and do it. Because if I see something that's broken, yeah, broken, I'm gonna call it what it is. If I see something that's broken, I feel the need to put my best foot forward to help. Not that I'm going to fix the system, but maybe through partnerships with others who see the same issues that I see and have that same passion, that drive, we can come together and see how we can improve education for our students.
That's great. So let's switch over to your singing. Were you as out in front, shall I say, with your musical talents prior to having met Nina and then joined Lisa and Paul in the band? Had you sung out with bands prior to moving to the high desert?
No, I had not sung with bands before. When I started singing with the LPs, that was my first time singing with the band. But I did grow up singing. I sang in the choir at church starting at the age of 15. And when I was working on my bachelor's degree and taking classes at College of the Desert, I joined the opera workshop, the opera theater there. And I really just enjoyed performing and being on stage. I didn't care if I was ensemble member, if I had a solo. I just wanted to sing and I wanted to perform. And taking time from that, once I got my degree, I was like, okay, I have to focus now. So then it was getting my credential, and then I wanted one master, and then I wanted another one. So that didn't really give me as much time. I think that there was a part of me that always wanted to get back to music and singing, maybe on a bigger scale. I like to think that my perfect life would be teaching during the week and singing on the weekends. And so I did want to be a member of a band, and I hadn't met the right band. And it has to be a connection there. Your dreams and your goals align, and there has to be a genuine friendship there, because it should be fun. If it's not fun, I don't want to do it.
Right.
And it just happened to be perfect timing that I met Nina, and Nina wanted me to come and do background for her for a show that she had coming up. And I was excited. I was like, yes. And Lisa and Paul had a show that were coming up. They just happened to meet Nina on a Monday or a Tuesday night, and they had a show that was coming up that weekend, but the person who was supposed to sing lead backed out, and they said, well, let's call Nina. We just saw Nina sing. She's really good. They called Nina, and Nina's like, well, okay, but Valcine has to come. I was like, oh, okay, 2 for 1. And so Nina called me up and said, okay, I met this guy and this girl, and they have this band, and they want us to come and sing. I was like, well, what are the songs? She goes, I'm gonna sing you the list. So she sent me the list. I was like, oh, I know those songs.
Yeah.
I know these 6. She said, well, I know the other 7. I was like, perfect. So we said yes. And this was on a Tuesday, mind you. The gig was coming up on Friday. And so Paul had called on the phone with Nina while I was there. And I said, well, did you want to get together and practice? You haven't even heard me sing. They said, well, we heard Nina and Nina vouches for you, so you're in. I was like, oh, okay. And because I was like, well, I'm available this day. Well, we're not available that day. And oh, okay. I was like, all right, well, can we at least go through the songs before we go? They said, well, yeah, on Friday, can you come at 3:00 or 3:30? I was like, okay, I can do that. So I come home, I get ready for the show. I go to where we're going to practice, and they start playing the songs, and I sing. And they were like, yes. So then we get in our cars, we carpool over to Idlewild. We were singing up in Idlewild, and we did such a great job. They invited us to come back 2 or 3 more times, and we end up doing a Halloween party that they were having up there that year. And we just kept going.
Oh my gosh. Well, and if it's the LPs that you're talking about,
yes,
the long plays.
Yes.
I think I came one night when y'all were playing at the Saloon, and it's just all such great music. They made great choices about what to play, and you all do a great job. The musicianship is what you would imagine, in a small place like this.
And I'm the newbie. They are, oh my goodness. They are such talented people, and they've been in the business for a while, and their repertoire is just so flexible and phenomenal. And I like to say, well, I'm just the teacher.
Well, yeah, I learned so much when I had Lisa on the podcast. And if someone's listening and wants to listen to Lisa Rae Black's podcast, it's episode 95. She just blew me away with a couple of things that she mentioned and talking about her younger life in California.
Yes.
And yeah, it was really great. So yeah, you stepped into it probably couldn't have happened any better for you,
No, it was just perfect timing. When something's meant to be, it just falls in a line. It's like breathing. It's effortless.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, y'all did excellent. I loved it. So
Thank you.
I hope that we can all get together and do it again.
Pappy's too.
Oh, yes.
I recall. Yes, Pappy's.
Yes. Yeah. Because when I find somebody that I really like to listen to, I like to go a lot. So.
Oh.
Yeah, it was great. Let's move to the other art form of writing. And you actually own an indie publishing company, do you not?
Yes, I do. It's CrisaAnd Productions. It's a combination of my children's names, Laurice, Christopher, and Andre. And I've self-published 2 Christian romance novels. And when I was working on my first master's, humanities with an emphasis in creative writing, I wrote a novel at that time, several short stories, and a collection of poetry. So when I have some time, it is my plan to assemble 2 or 3 of the short stories into a compilation with some of my poetry.
Tell me what inspired you to start your own company.
I wrote a novel and I said, I really want to get this published. And so I started seeking out publishing. And one of the publishers who contacted me, they gave me an offer. I can't remember what the offer was, but I knew enough to go and take it to someone else to figure out whether or not it was a good deal or not. And there was a woman who attended church with me at the time who had published several books. And so I took the contract to her and I said, well, is this good? What do you think? She goes, oh no, you can do better. She said, you're such a go-getter. She goes, I really think you should self-publish. These days, they're taking a lot of the proceeds for all the work that you've already done. She goes, I really recommend that you self-publish. I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. So she recommended a book to me, The Self-Publisher's Manual by Dan Poynter. And I went and I purchased that book, and it's step-by-step how to go about the whole process of setting up your publishing company, how to buy your ISBN numbers. And I said, I can do that. It was a process, but yes, so that's really how I started. I was just going the route to find someone else to publish it for me. And I was encouraged to do it myself.
It's interesting sometimes the circumstances that we come up against and how that kind of turns into us having another learning or starting a company or things like that. It's just amazing how those things can happen for us. It's things that we never even imagined that we would ever do or be.
Yes, I never thought I'd own a publishing company. Yes, and so I have 2 Christian romances out. As I mentioned, the one I plan on putting together one of these days.
Right. As soon as you have time.
Yes, it's really just a matter of selecting the pieces and deciding the order. But then on the other end, it's the marketing. That's the time I'm more concerned about spending.
Right, exactly. So you spent a significant amount of time in the lower desert, and now you've been up here in the high desert. Did you say 4 years?
4.5, yes.
4.5. Okay. Oh, same as me. Yeah.
Yay.
I came up in July of 2016 or August of 2016. Yeah.
Yes.
Talk to me about the differences of the lower desert versus the high desert for you.
It's much cooler up here. That 12 to 13 degrees is very significant. And when I was in the lower desert, once summer came around, your windows are closed up. It's all about the air conditioning. But up here, it cools off significantly enough about 7:30 or 8 o'clock where you can turn off the AC and open the windows and just get some fresh air. Another significance, it's not as crowded. We don't have as much. I mean, there's not a lot of traffic down there, but I can still see the difference from up here to down there. And the stars. I can go sit in my backyard on a lawn chair and look up. And because there's no light pollution, just a beautiful night sky of stars. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Do you spend much time in the national park?
No, not much time in the national park. I have gone hiking with a friend of mine, but if we can't go right at the right time, I can't go. If it's too hot or too cold, I'm like Goldilocks.
That makes sense.
Yes, I like to spend more time in my backyard.
Did you get your garden? Because you said you like to garden.
Yes, I'm revamping it right now, but we're getting ready to plant my seeds and I'll start them in the house in March and get them out there in April. I typically grow corn and tomatoes, onions, green onions, jalapenos. This year I bought some fruit trees, some bare roots. So I'm looking forward to putting those in. Well, I'm sorry, I bought fruit trees last year. I bought some bushes. I bought blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries this year that will go in. And I have chickens.
Oh, how many chickens do you have?
I have 6 hens who lay me beautiful, tasty eggs.
That is awesome. So do you have your garden protected? Because I know a lot of people up here have trouble with the either ground squirrels or the rabbits coming around. How do you keep your little store of fruits and vegetables protected from those varmints?
That's a challenge. 2 years ago, when I first started gardening, I did raised beds and I used chicken coop wiring around it. And that did very well that first year. Last year, they got on to me and they dug under and came up. I was like, whoa. So my children, all 3 of them, asked me what I wanted for Christmas this year. I said, I wanted an electric fence. And my son said, really? I was like, yeah. So I found it. I was like, look, it's $200. Can I have an electric fence? They said, really? I was like, yeah. They said, okay. So they bought me an electric fence.
Poor things. It's that like that age old, you open up your gift from maybe your husband on Christmas and it's like an iron or something like that. This seems the same kind of, they were like really questioning, you're not going to yell at us when you open this electric fence for Christmas, right?
Yes. And so it arrived and it's in the corner of the living room.
And they said, well, when are you gonna put this fence up? It's February. I said, we're gonna put it up in March. He said, we. I said, we.
Well, I'll be anxious to hear how it works out for you.
I hope it works out. I really do.
Yeah, there's something. I see a lot of folks on social media talking about their gardens getting routed by the rabbits and the ground squirrels.
Yeah.
So hopefully
They're
it'll work.
tenacious.
Yeah, they totally are, especially digging under your chicken wire. Crafty.
Yes, they went underneath. And so I have my main backyard, and then I have a separate fence, and then there was the garden portion that was fenced in. So I'm hoping that with the electric fence, I can give the dogs access to both yards, so they'll keep them from coming in to be able to dig under. So the dogs will parole the little perimeter around the electric fence.
Yeah, you got it all planned out.
Yes, I just hope it works.
I think it will. It sounds like a plan. So, well, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. Time flew, but it's already time for me to ask you those questions for the Diary Unlocked episode for my Patreon supporters. So let's just do that shaking up.
And thank you so much for having me, Dawn.
Oh, you are welcome.
You.
I appreciate you being on, taking the time. You're going for a doctorate. You've got things to do. So I appreciate your time. And
thank you.
If you're listening and you want to hear Valcine's answers to these questions, I would like you to go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support tab, and learn how you can become a patron of the podcast. So the questions I have for Valcine will be, ironically, what's the last book you read and why did you choose it? Who is one person that made a big impact on your life and in what way? What is something every woman should try in her lifetime? And the last question will be, do you have a favorite charity? What is it and why do you support it? So again, if you would like to hear Valcine's answers to those questions, go out to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and become a patron of the podcast. Valcine Brown, thank you again for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dawn.
Shout out this week to Jade. Jade, thanks so much for shopping at Soul Connection. It was great to meet you. While Jade was shopping, she shared that listening to the other women on the podcast talk about making their journey to the desert inspired her to do the same. And she's been in town for about a year now. So welcome, Jade. This podcast is funded through the generosity of listeners like you. If you'd like to learn how you can chip in, visit desertladydiaries.com and click on the support page. You can become a monthly patron of the podcast and receive exclusive content in appreciation of your patronage, or you can make a one-time donation via PayPal using your debit or credit card, and you don't have to be a PayPal member. You can also support without spending a dime by following the podcast on Facebook or Instagram, subscribing on one of the listening platforms, or sharing your favorite episode on social media. Thanks so much for listening.